Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar titled The Business of Dr. Their
Mute.
They have some very exciting opportunities. So, to that end, we're going to spend some time learning about the organisation, about the opportunities that are available. But most importantly of all, our two speakers are going to guide us through the lens of their own experience and their own respective journeys. So our two speakers who we're delighted to have are Dr. Charlotte Norton, who is the Medical Director at the Slimming Clinic, and Dr. Jane Glainsbrook, who is the Regional Clinical Lead and Resident Doctor at the Slimming Clinic. Now, they're going to introduce themselves a lot more thoroughly than I will in just a moment. But first of all, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to be running to about 8:15. We may run over just a couple of minutes, but we'll aim to finish at 8:15. You are very, very welcome to ask questions at any point. If you do, please can I ask you to use the Q&A box, type in your question there. I'm going to be monitoring those questions all the way through. If I think that a question is particularly relevant at that moment during Charlotte and Jane's conversation, then I will find a moment and I will drop that into the conversation. However, if you don't hear them being answered straight away, do not worry, because towards the end, once Charlotte and Jane have finished, about 45 minutes, we will move into a Q&A section and we'll have a chance to really rigorous debate and questions, and I know they're eager to get cracking answering your questions. So if you don't hear it answered straight away, do not worry, they will be answered in due course. And then we'll finish up. We'll tell you a little bit more about some other events that we have coming up. We'll finish at about 8:15. But we really, really hope from everyone at the Slimming Clinic and everyone at Medic Footprints really hopes that you get what you need. And this is a great learning experience for you. So please do get involved and make the most of it. But before we get started, a few other bits and pieces, just to say this is being recorded and will be up on our website by Thursday. So you're very welcome to listen to it again. And indeed, if you know of anyone else who would benefit from this opportunity, then please do forward the link. We'll give it to you at the end and you'll have that in for about Thursday. And so let's get going. So before I introduce Charlotte and Jane and let them speak for themselves in a moment, what we're going to do is we are just going to move on to a poll. And the first poll gives us a little bit more insight as to what has brought you all here this evening, because we're aware you've got a lot going on. So what made you decide to show up today? So the first poll is what made you decide to join? And we've got a multiple choice questions. We put more than one down. And the answers range from I have an interest in weight loss services to I've heard about the Slimming Clinic, but just want to find out more information about them, to you might already have said, well, actually, you know what, I'm about to apply for their vacancies, or indeed, I actually have already applied. So what I ask you to do, let's launch this poll. We'll take literally 20, 30 seconds. Please can I ask you to click the buttons that are relevant for you, and this will really help our speakers and everyone here to really understand what's brought you along tonight. That's so, so helpful for us. So let's just give that a few more moments before we move on to Charlotte and Jane. Here we go, got 50%. Let's try and get to 100%. I know we can, we generally do on our webinars. Okay, we're at 67. I think we can do better. If you're not sure, there we go. Right, 10 more seconds and we'll move on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Let's pause it right there. Thank you very, very much. So here's what we have. We've got 74% saying I'm exploring lots of alternative career opportunities, and this caught my eye, which is great. We have 47% who said I have an interest in weight loss services. And we've got 15% who said I've heard about the Slimming Clinic before and wanted to find out more about them. We've got 15%, interestingly enough, who said I'm about to apply for a clinical position with the Slimming Clinic. We've got 6% saying I've already applied for a clinical position. So that says to us there's lots of broad general interest in alternative careers and in weight loss services already. Some have heard about the Slimming Clinic, but it sounds like for many of you, this is the first chance to really get to grips and learn all about this organisation and Charlotte and Jane's respective stories. So thank you very, very much for that. I'm now delighted to pass over to Charlotte and Jane. So Charlotte and Jane, if you'd like to come on and introduce yourselves and tell us what you're going to be sharing with us over the next 45 minutes or so. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi there. Hi, Owen. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you everybody for joining us today. So I am Dr. Charlotte Norton, the Medical Director for the Slimming Clinic.
And I'm Dr. Jane Glazebrook, Regional Clinical Lead and a resident doctor currently at the Slimming Clinic.
So we wanted to kick off this initial part of the webinar with telling you a little bit about ourselves and our journeys into working with the Slimming Clinic and what brought us and the Slimming Clinic to our attention. So I'm going to start first telling you a little bit about my journey and how I ended up here, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about the Slimming Clinic, what it is we do, what the role is of the doctor in the clinic, and then Jane's going to then talk through her experience as well and why she came to work with us. So to start my story, which may be familiar with some of you and what you're thinking and why you've joined us on this webinar today, I obviously went through medical school, left, did my F1 and F2. I wasn't entirely sure what area of medicine I wanted to go into. I hadn't found a specialty as such that had attracted me, that had given me that level of interest, that motivation to go home, read around the subject, learn more, really dive into it. So following on from doing F2, I did a year in obs and gynae, so tried, thought maybe a surgical career might be what I was interested in, but as they say, looking at your seniors, I looked at the consultant role and I didn't know if that was for me. So I took a little bit of time, did a little bit of work in other areas. I tried some community practice, I tried GP, I worked within A&E, but I still didn't find that real interest, that spark to make me want to continue on in my training. So I actually initially came out of clinical practice and I went into doing the DWP assessments, but I still knew that that wasn't something that I wanted to do my whole career pathway with. I'd always had an interest, a personal interest in nutrition, in fitness, weight loss, and given the increasing obesity epidemic, thought there must be a way that I could utilize my interest and passion in that with my ability to build a clinical career. I stumbled across the Slimming Clinic, or what we formerly called the National Slimming Clinics, as it was introduced to me by a colleague I was working with at the DWP. And I applied, went into one of the clinics, found out a little bit more about what we did. And what struck me straight away was what a lovely working environment it was. The fact that you had dedicated time with patients, it was a patient-facing role. You were able to take the time to get to know them, explore their weight loss history, their sort of diet, lifestyle, social history, and also treat them in a very positive way. The patients there are not acutely ill, they've come to you for help, and I just knew that this was something that really balanced my own interests and gave me a chance to use my medical skills. I started very much doing one session per week in one clinic. It then grew, doing sessions in several clinics. I moved around a little bit, all across the southwest, which is where I'm based and from. Then there became opportunities for career progression, getting involved in management activities, leading some audits, looking at incident review reports, getting involved with some of the HR and recruitment, which led me to developing a slightly different managerial role alongside my patient-facing clinical one. At the tail end of last year, the Slimming Clinic came under new management, which has brought us to where we are now, which is obviously rebranding ourselves as the Slimming Clinic, which I will touch on a little bit more in a moment. But the opportunity came for me to take on a role as medical director and really start to work with the new leaders and the new ownership to start to carve out a very new and innovative service to really work on developing what we offer to patients that are struggling with their weight, struggling with obesity, struggling with the comorbidities associated with it. And that's led me to where I am now, and being here today to speak with you and tell you a little bit about us and myself. So what I will do is I'm going to move on, and I'm just going to share my screen with you, which will allow me to tell you a little bit more about the Slimming Clinic and who we are. So bear with me. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. So obviously you've all heard a little bit about me and how I ended up in the position I am, working at the Slimming Clinic now. So we are the UK's largest group of doctor-led slimming clinics. We have 24 clinics as of today across England, Scotland and Wales, all of which are regulated by the relevant regulatory bodies, and we're proud to have our CQC, HES and HIW inspections and status. We've been trading, well, the company's been going for 34 years, formerly as the National Slimming and Cosmetic Clinics, and more recently the Slimming Clinic. And we're undergoing, as I touched on, a rapid expansion across the UK. We're moving towards having up to 100 clinics across the UK. So obviously there's plenty of scope for new clinic openings and job opportunities. If I click through, Jane can tell you a bit more about what we do.
So on a personal note, from the day-to-day runnings of the clinic, you are the lead clinician of your clinic. You work as the only doctor on site at that time, and you go through a consultation with your patient. It's quite an in-depth consultation. You cover all aspects of their clinical care, along with diet and exercise assessments, and it's very individualized to your patient, so you really build a very good rapport with your patient. We do see a vast variety of individuals and patients, some very well patients and some with more comorbidities associated with their weights, and it is quite rewarding that we can often see these comorbidities reversing or improving quite a lot with their weight loss, which helps the patients as well. Obviously, part of what we do is medication and prescriptive medication, and that is an adjunctive to a very holistic approach to weight loss. So the diet and the exercise advice that you're giving is still the mainstay for your patients. So having a good grasp on that and having quite a lot of enthusiasm for holistic care and integrative health is quite important.
One of the great things about working at the Slimming Clinic is patients often self-refer to us. So they've identified that they have a problem with weight, maybe identified that diet and lifestyle behaviours that they've tried before, or slimming clubs they've been to.
Various groups, or they've been told by other practitioners that they need to lose weight, maybe for surgical purposes or health purposes, and therefore they're kind of at the end of their tether and wanting more help than anywhere else has provided them with
before. Yes, absolutely. And we avoid having to tackle the difficult question of weight head on. We're there to welcome them in, to bring them into our environment, our safe environment, where our sole purpose is to help them
address quite a difficult subject, which is often kind of hard to breach. So
and you get that bit of extra time, because all we are focusing on, or a major part of what we're focusing on, is obviously their weight loss. We have the time to really take a really good history of what's worked for them before, what it is that's been an issue. We
it's quite complex, so we do attack it from lots of different angles, and we can really get to the crux of what help they need.
Absolutely, and we see our patients weekly. Patients have the facility to come in and see us each week, so we really can keep that close level of follow-up, and really watch how they're progressing each week. It is truly rewarding when you see how patients do, and for the 34 years the company's been going, we've helped hundreds of thousands of patients really transform their lives. So that's not just improving aesthetically how they look or how they feel, but also, as Jane touched on, maybe reversing that borderline diabetic issue or borderline high blood pressure issue. But also it's the lovely stories where you've got a young mum who can't keep up with her children, or somebody who before didn't feel the confidence to maybe go for a job promotion, or it can be very transformative to the patients to really take them through this journey and help them achieve their
life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much. Really, I thought, you know what, I've got a couple of questions that have come up. I'd love to just drop them into the mix if that's all right with you.
Of course.
The first one is from Siobhan, and the question is, what is the process for training new doctors to the clinic for this?
So
question.
It's a good question. So initially we do two ways of training. There is a formalized induction, which is a day of going through information in terms of how to perform the service, giving more information about how we do our diet and lifestyle assessment, and
various medications that we prescribe in clinic, because some aren't necessarily prescribed in the NHS.
In the NHS, they're on private prescription, and then doctors sit in with a more experienced doctor in one of the clinics. They observe a clinic, then can have support doing their first clinic session if wanted. So we make sure by the time a doctor's running that session alone that they feel comfortable and competent and ready to take on a session.
Fantastic. And you've got another question. Got a question from Preet, which is slightly kind of zooming out a little bit now. And I guess it's kind of a conceptual, philosophical question. Like, his question is like, why is it so important? Why do you need to have a doctor to run a weight loss clinic, please? Is it kind of lots of prescription required? I think you appreciate just clarification why it's so important to have a medic in that.
I suppose you are the centre of the clinical team. What the Slimming Clinic is now doing is becoming a multidisciplinary team, which we're going to touch upon in a bit. So we're going to have a movement specialist, a nutritionist, but for that continuity of care and for perhaps the clinical side of things and prescriptive medication, which is an adjunctive, it's not necessarily something that is solely the point of the clinics. The clinician is still probably the centre, and it's probably the person that patient is going to see most frequently throughout their treatment process.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's it. That's it. That's perfect.
Fantastic, thank you. Got another couple of questions before we launch back into tell us about your story, Jane, as well. But another question from Wahid is, the issue around indemnity, especially if one is practicing. So if someone's kind of focusing kind of weight loss space as a medic, potentially if one, especially if I guess if someone is a freelancer working on a kind of a sole trade. How does the issue of indemnity work? I appreciate it may be different if it's with an organisation like the Slimming Clinic. Any thoughts on that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so we provide indemnity insurance to all practitioners, doctors and staff that work in our clinics. So independent doctors are completely covered and indemnified for the work they do for us, and we do give a copy and proof of that policy to show to appraisers, because we obviously will have to show that we're fully covered, indemnified for the work we do for our appraisal purposes. But obviously if a doctor is working anywhere else, that doesn't cover any other clinical practice. But yes, it's part of what we provide to our doctors.
Fantastic. And just one more question before we move on, I think. Again from Wahid, launching straight into it. In terms of, he's interested to find out what kind of drugs, what kind of drugs do you describe in the course of your day-to-day clinic work?
Yeah, so we prescribe several medications. So as we said, obviously patients have tended to come to us having tried either tier 2 services, so gone through their GP, maybe been referred to Slimming Club or the gym or whatever's locally available to them. So we're usually at a point where we can go straight in to consider pharmacological support.
if they're suitable and they meet the criteria?
Yeah, absolutely. We medically assess all our patients, and again, that's part of why we have doctors in the clinics, because we can make that clinical judgment based on their health and physical examination, what medication they are suitable for. So we have our first medication is Xenical or Orlistat, which most doctors that join us are quite well informed with and are quite familiar with using. That tends to be less popular, given that lots of patients have probably tried that with their GP before coming to us. We then have two slightly older oral tablet medications called phentermine and diethylpropium. They are centrally acting appetite suppressants, so they work within the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus to reduce hunger and increase satiety. So feeling less hungry, feeling fuller when the patients eat. And then more recently, we have had Saxenda or liraglutide, which has joined us in the clinic, and it is a once daily injectable. It comes as a pre-filled pen the patients inject themselves with. It's a GLP-1 agonist, so that has, again, some central effects via the arcuate nucleus in reducing appetite, but also has an effect on delaying gastric emptying, so improves fullness as well. So all of the the three appetite suppressants we provide help regulate hunger and improve fullness, and then obviously we have Orlistat and Xenical as a lipase inhibitor fat blocker as well to reduce net calories in. So that's the medication that we have.
Fantastic, thank you so much. You know what, we are going to move on to Jane's session, I promise. But Bubbers-Jones, our CEO, is sitting next to me, and she has a question she's just itching to ask.
Hello, hi there.
Elena, what's your question?
Yeah, sorry, I also do operations as well. I'm kind of multitasking in the background, but listening, and it's really fascinating. So thanks, guys.
No worries.
So yeah, my question is about, so you mentioned all of the medication and the care that you provide to your clients, your patients. So at what point does your care responsibilities end? At what point do you stop prescribing?
Oh, good question.
What's the relationship that you have with GPs in general?
So obviously the prescriptive medication is for BMI basis, so it's over 27, so depending on criteria, or over 30 and then over 27 with comorbidities. And then we can obviously take patients on a journey into a healthy weight, so anywhere between 22.5 to 25. But we do realise that maintenance is half the issue, so there's not really any stop point from our service. Obviously from a prescriptive point of view that will stop at some point, but we always offer that sort of open door policy that if patients are struggling still to maintain their weight, they've still got that continuity of care with us for advice and for the sort of nutrition and diet purposes as well.
Yeah, so we can continue to monitor patients after we stop prescriptive medication, because we know that vulnerability in those first 6 to 12 months post weight loss. And then in terms of your question about GP communication, obviously we are private clinics, so patients do have a right to expect confidentiality from us. At all our patients' initial assessments, we strongly advise and counsel them on the fact that we would like to inform their GP of their treatment. So our goal is to get as many as possible to consent for us to have that communication, and so then we write directly to their GP and inform them of our treatment plan and chosen medication. Obviously, however, if the patient chooses not to consent and has capacity to do so, we therefore respect their privacy. However, we ask them to keep us abreast of any changes in their medical health or medical condition that could mean we need to think about their prescriptive medication again.
Sure. I mean, what your experience so far? What kind of relationship do you have with GPs? Do they see you favourably? Are there kind of any kind of areas of conflict there? Like, what's it?
It can be quite mixed.
Yeah, I think to be honest, mixed.
I think some of it is not a huge amount of knowledge about our service and the medications as well. So I think what people don't know, they can sometimes get a little bit apprehensive about. But we do give them information of anything that we do prescribe, so they've got the full knowledge of what we do.
We recently made a change, so with our GP letter we also send out an accompanying document that explains what all our medications are, the cautions, the contraindications regarding the medication, which since then we found we were starting to get much better feedback from doctors, and we have even had cases where GPs are referring their patients to us, having seen the good progress patients that they've had have made with us, and they've just inquired, found out a little bit more about us and what we do, and therefore have the confidence to send their patients to us.
Hopefully they see it as we're taking some of the burden of such a big issue from them, because they don't have the time to educate their patients like we get the time to educate.
Great, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. You know, we've got plenty more questions coming through. If we go back to you guys, and then we'll come back to those questions in due course, if that works for you.
Right.
Brilliant.
I'm going to go off the side again.
Thanks very much,
No,
everyone.
it's great. It's good, great
Right.
questions. But that's the point to talk through everything. So, so this slide was just was actually just showing a visual of where we're going in terms of rebranding our clinics, and this actually is a visual of the clinic we opened today. We opened our first new branded clinic up in Glasgow. So we are moving to more of a high street location, so we want patients to be able to easily identify us, find us, come in and inquire. Absolutely. So these are the sorts of clinical environments and healthcare settings that we'll be hosting our clinics in moving forward.
And as I said before, we're now providing a more extensive service, so we're more holistic. So we've got movement specialists and nutrition experts, and we're also introducing a healthcare app for mental health and mindfulness to help the patient keep motivated. As you can see by this slide here, that's considered quite important for patients in their journey for their weight loss.
Yeah, so as part of the great work that our new management team and our marketing department have done, is some really dedicated focus groups that allowed us to talk to patients, both existing patients and new potential prospective patients, to find out for them what they would value from a weight loss service, what, as well as obviously seeing the doctor and having a consideration of our care, was there other elements they felt were important. And that mindset element that I didn't do well this week because my head wasn't in it, was a huge part of what patients find as a barrier. So we have used that knowledge as a basis for helping to develop our new team. So we're starting rolling that out up in Scotland, and then we'll be subsequently rolling it across the country. So as Jane touched on, doctors will be working not alone, but also with a dietitian to give more dedicated and expert advice on patients' diets, a movement coach to encourage patients just to move more, not strict or rigid exercise, but just to get more movement into their daily lives, and then this coaching app to help with that mindset as well. So one of the things that we are also doing is looking to is partnering with some new and potential different companies to help modernise and digitise the care that we're giving, as patients in all walks of medicine are used to having something available, technological, to sort of guide their healthcare. So we've got a few,
so as more modern things are coming in, and we're finding even more about obesity, we've got the ability now to look into genetic testing and also blood testing as well for other kind of comorbidities and functional elements. We're also providing our patients with a fitness tracker so that they can
be more accountable
for their own, which is part of the education, because obviously when they go on and maintain their weight, we want them to take everything that they're learning from us on board with them.
And personalised care in all walks of medicine is quite
big at the moment as well.
So that's where we want to look. We've also using body composition analysis in our clinics as well, because simply weighing the patients we know isn't always the best way to judge their
it's not seen as the most accurate anymore, especially if they change their exercise plan and start to do more, say, weight training. Their muscle mass tends to go up, and this can sort of skew results on a BMI basis. So we are becoming more sort of tech savvy on that.
Absolutely.
That side of monitoring.
Unfortunately, it links to an app on the patient's phone, so they can have
they can have it in black and white
as well. So that's sort of a bit of a broken nutshell between sort of where we're going to and what we're doing. So Jane is now just going to talk through her story and how she came to join us at the Slimming Clinic.
Yeah, so I went through medical school, and as we all have, and I was quite unaware of the alternative medical careers that were out there. I also didn't get a huge amount of nutrition or sort of lifestyle or functional medical training at medical school. And then obviously went on to do foundation training, and it was quite a sort of blow and quite a sort of reality check on, is this why I went into medicine? Is this what I was expecting? Is this what I want my life to be? I found it quite intense, quite stressful. I think everyone can relate to that. The burnout rate is just extortionate these days, and just the lack of sort of support, I suppose. And also from a clinical level, the amount of patients that I was seeing with chronic diseases that were completely preventable and almost coming in on this sort of cyclical basis. It was quite upsetting that the education about health and how these things are easily preventable is not really out there necessarily. So I actually retrained as a personal trainer and nutritionist, and integrated my sort of clinical knowledge with my clients, and sort of did a lot of rehab, saw a lot of clients that other trainers didn't want to touch because they had these medical issues. I then obviously kind of missed the medical aspect of things. I missed the sort of clinical side of things. I wanted to still be a doctor, and I came across an advertisement in a medical journal about careers, and started working at the National Slimming Cosmetics Clinic at the time. I had an induction and started to see patients on a regular basis, and I was almost combining all my experience, both medical and both sort of personal and other interest experience, to do what I actually love, which is amazing. I've been doing it 5 years now, and I do actually look forward to going to work every day and talking to people about something that I'm passionate about, and making them accountable for their own health, which I think is quite important at the moment in society, that people do that in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sort of daily, I see the same patients pretty much every week. So I do build a really nice relationship with them. I do get to know all about them and their lifestyle, so I can really individualize their care. I get to work with the same team, and I do my regular hours, so it's really nice balance that I get to sort of go home and do other hobbies that I enjoy, and I don't have to do any nights, I don't have to do any on calls or emergency care. So I've lucked out in a way that I feel that I've kind of been able to do what I loved at the end point after my training. So that's me in a nutshell.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is that we do tend to find that we have doctors from all walks of life applying to work with us, doctors who have been in all different types of roles, different speciality areas,
GPs, surgeons, we've had everything.
People that have maybe come out of clinical practice and worked in big pharma. We get a lot of interest, and I think that a varied workforce and doctors with all different types of experiences is really fundamental. And as Jane said, the main role, and one of the things that is at the core of this service, is the ability to be in that patient-facing role. So as Jane touched on, it's Doctors Work a Daily Clinic, which consists of seeing new and existing patients. So your existing patients, hopefully, we hope we see each week to really monitor their progress. Obviously, we're looking to make sure they're losing weight, to make sure they've got all the diet and lifestyle support they need. And also assessing if they're on any medication, if it's being well tolerated, and patients are seeking the benefits. There isn't a lot of paperwork. We don't make you write reams of notes. No. We want that interaction with the patient, that coaching and that encouragement is really so integral and important to the role. And you tend to find that patients
respond to you. So if you're enthusiastic about it, they're going to be more successful in their journey, and get the benefits out of your care.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just wanted, before I know that Owen's probably there with a list of questions, but we just wanted to sort of quickly just abbreviate all the reasons why, if you are interested in pursuing a career with us, or you want to find out a bit more about the Slimming Clinic, just to cover some of the sort of benefits. And for some of you listening, maybe you are still within NHS practice, maybe not sure if you want to dip your toe into the private sector. So hopefully you can both see that we've moved from the NHS to the private sector and have stayed there. And as doctors, we do have the wonderful ability to be able to flex our careers, to do different things, be portfolio doctors. But these are just some of the benefits that we sort of put together and we think are really key to the enjoyment of working with us. So as Jane touched on, doctors have structured working hours. They work a regular clinic. We try and keep our doctors working a similar day or days each week. And we have flexible working patterns, so doctors can work for us just a few days a week up to full time. We like to keep that continuity each week because the patients get to know you and they want to come and see you each week. And obviously there are no on-calls, there are no night shifts, and we don't offer emergency or acute care. So this is you've got much
something
time.
If you're looking for a good work-life balance, this is a very good option to look at. You've got the ability that you're not on the rota, so you can book annual leave in advance, really, rather than being dictated when it's going to be. And because now we're obviously offering sort of employment packages, you'll still have that revalidation and appraisal support in-house, and the CPD opportunities. Both sort of your mandatory training will be covered, but also you can scope sort of a wider range of whatever you're interested in, and obviously all the sort of pension and the benefits. That would be
one of the really exciting things about the Slimming Clinic at the moment is, and if you're interested in working with us, at the moment or at any stage, is that we really are moving forward and making changes. We want to really push forward to become a real standout clinic and a standout service for patients in that tier 3 sort of obesity management spectrum. So there is a real opportunity for doctors joining us at the moment to get involved in the way that we are progressing, the way that we are developing our service. There are options and great opportunities for those that want to progress their career, either in obesity management a bit further, or in more clinical governance areas, leadership roles as well. So there is a lot of opportunity at the moment. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as Jane just touched on a moment ago about the annual leave, we all know when you work in hospitals and shifts, there are family occasions, weddings, all these things that can be virtually impossible to plan your life around, and you will end up missing Christmas or New Year, or other holidays that you want to join with your friends and family. So obviously the way that our clinics run and the way that we have bookable annual leave usually means that you can really strike that balance, as well as having a career that you find enjoyable and motivating as well. Our clinic teams are quite small.
Yeah.
In terms of, you've got just some front of house sort of clinic manager and receptionist staff that you work with, yourself as a doctor. In some of our bigger clinics, we might have 2 doctors on, and other MDT members of the team that will be coming. So you do form quite a nice family at your individual clinic.
Yeah.
And you become a real valued member of that team.
And obviously you've got, we're going to be hiring some senior support. So obviously I'm a regional clinical lead, so I cover sort of the South clinics, and then obviously you've got the medical director as well. So there is support there as well.
And yeah, absolutely, and ongoing training opportunities. So the last things that we thought are real value are if you are motivated by really helping to support patients achieve what they want, and you want to have that continuity of care that maybe current areas of practice haven't allowed you to. It's a great place to really build those relationships and share in patients' achievements. When they do well, you feel you've done well, and to bring it back to the medicine and the reason that we do what we do as doctors is to help improve patients' health. So by helping to reduce their weight, helping them to change behaviours, re-educate on diet, increase their physical activity, we have the ability to potentially prevent or reverse
certain disease processes, and obviously in another way taking a massive burden off our existing healthcare system.
Absolutely. I mean, obesity is now a pandemic as defined by the WHO. So it is a large clinical problem. It's a huge problem and cost for the NHS.
Yes, and
so
it's currently not improving.
No, so at the core of that, what we're doing is not only helping patients feel better about themselves, but we are improving their health and indirectly their life expectancy. So that sort of brings us to the end of the sort of slides that we have prepared. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a taster about the Slimming Clinic itself and our journeys. So I think I can see that there are quite a few questions to come through. So
we have, guys, thank you so much. We have got a lot of questions coming through. So there's clearly lots of interest. So what I suggest now is if we launch straight into that Q&A, and there are some questions which take a bit more time, I think, but there are some which are also quite like rapid fire. So what I suggest is if we go into the rapid fire questions and just work through those, and then there's a few more questions that might take a little bit more time to dig a little bit deeper, if that works with you.
Yep.
Right, brilliant. Here we go. There's quite a long list. We'll get cracking. So first of all, could you say a little bit more around, how many patients do you see in an average clinic, for example?
Oh, so it depends on obviously the length of clinic. Your initial patient consultation, you get 35 to 40 minutes, and then sort of roughly 5 to 10 minutes on repeat follow-up patients. So I can see sort of 30, 40 patients, depending on the sort of clinic session day. It really is dependent, but you never push for time and you're never twiddling your thumbs. So it's a nice working day. It's all quite well balanced, and it's all kind of maintained there on site. Your clinic manager sort of organises your patient flow.
Balances the diary. Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. So we've got another question, which is, do you have a minimum requirement in terms of days or hours that you'd want a doctor to work?
So usually, because we like to build that continuity, we like doctors to do at least one regular day per week, so that they get a list of patients and a cohort of patients that stick with them. So usually it's one day, and our probably shortest clinic sessions are about 6 hours. And longest about 10. So it does depend on what day of the week. In some clinics, as we have different opening hours on different days, as we try and sort of do maybe the late openings or early mornings to try and capture as many patients as we can around their daily life. So, but yeah, one day is usually one session our minimum.
So it sounds like there's quite a lot of flexibility there to suit people's different lifestyles.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully people would see the value of working for us and would want to, build on their sessions, but as both we did, starting with one and building. But absolutely, from one session is absolutely fine.
Fantastic, thank you. Now we've got 3 questions asking about when you're going to start extending to the UK and beyond. So the first one, so what about, we know you're expanding, and we know you opened a clinic today in Scotland, which is so exciting. So we've got a question from Wahid is, what are opportunities and demand like in Scotland, again, in Edinburgh? We've got also another question about, when do you plan to open a clinic if you haven't done already in the West Midlands? And we've got another question, which is, do you intend to extend clinics to Ireland? If so, when, please?
Okay. I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll start with Scotland. So Scotland is our, and is in fact where Jane and I are both right now, in reigning Glasgow as we speak. So Scotland is our first area of expansion, and that is because obesity rates are extremely high in Scotland. So we have coming through in September another clinic opening in Edinburgh and another clinic in Glasgow, which will give us 5 clinics across Scotland towards the end of September. So there are plenty of opportunities and vacancies available in Scotland.
And then it's sort of moving down the country. So I think Manchester's our next location, and sort of going down through the country. So we're aiming for areas where at the moment we don't have any clinics. So there is a cluster of clinics around Manchester, some Sheffield, Birmingham will be our initial or next run of clinics. Obviously we've got quite a few to get to our 94 over the next couple of years, so there will be continual new clinics opening across
so those clinics are kind of the next ones that are coming up, you know, like talk about Manchester. Is there a timeline for those yet, or is that kind of further ahead?
Manchester should be in late September, October time is Manchester. I'm afraid I don't know the exact times or openings for Birmingham or Sheffield at the moment. However, if there are doctors who are interested in areas where we don't have a clinic, it's great for you just to reach out, find out a bit more about us, and we can always keep CVs and keep applications so that when we do have a clinic opening in your area, we can contact you and let you know of an opening.
So most up-to-date things or vacancies will be on the website.
Yeah, we do have a page on our website which would list the clinics, but we have a dedicated recruitment support for doctors. So she'll be able to manage. Lovely lady Lisa can help to manage any applications that come through for areas, but we don't have clinics and keep doctors informed. Ireland is a good question. I don't know yet, but
it's a possibility.
I'm sure it's a possibility. So again, we'll have to, if you're interested, let us know. We can always let you know if we open over there.
Fantastic. In fact, we've got a particular request from Mahmoud from saying, can I add in East Midlands, in particular Leicester, as a new location? So please put that top of the list.
Thank you.
Got a direct request there. So, okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, the next big question, which various people are perhaps unsurprisingly asking, I'll put it as direct as one of the attendees has asked, is what's the pay like? You know, you've talked about the various the flexibility from one session and building up from that. It'd be really helpful to get a sense of, you know, what does pay, what does salary opportunity look like?
Okay, so for a full-time doctor working for us for a 37.5 hour week, the salary is 72,000 pro rata from there. So that's where we start from. That's obviously for a doctor who's working for us in a patient-facing role. As we discussed in what we were saying, there are and there will be opportunities for career progression and leading into other roles, which obviously could lead to different salary negotiations, but 72 is the pro rata salary for a full-time doctor in the clinic.
Fantastic. So I guess part-time, it obviously depends on what that looks like. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Got a question from Louise. Are any extra qualifications needed to apply? And then I'll add that segue into Amanda's question, which is quite specific around, you know, do you consider that a diploma in nutrition and fitness / weight management is especially useful in your role? I ask because I'm considering doing one, but want to ensure its long-term value.
Okay. So it's not a prerequisite to applying. So absolutely, if someone is interested but has no current qualifications or extra sort of
diplomas.
certifications or diplomas in obesity or weight management, we'd still be more than happy to speak with anybody. And as we said, there is those opportunities for growing once working with us.
So from clinical standpoint, it would be obviously your full GMC registration, completed F2.
Completed F2, so that's the minimum in terms of application. If you've really got that interest, you've done a diploma or you're thinking of doing one, and we do have doctors across the company who've done a mixture of additional qualifications. They undoubtedly find them really useful. You are the main caregiver as the doctor. You're the one that's working with the patient, so as much information you have and as much extra enthusiasm that you have will no doubt benefit the role. So I would think that diploma sounds like a great idea.
Oh, you're on mute at the moment.
We can't hear you.
Good question, thank you. I've caught myself out there. Thank you. So we've got a question from Sandra, which is, and I appreciate it may be hard to give an exact figure, but roughly how many doctors are you looking for at the moment?
Oh my goodness. So given our expansion plans, you can imagine that is quite a few. So the way we balance our clinics, because obviously we have flexible working, so we have some doctors that do just 1 day a week, and if I've got a clinic with all 1 day a week, so I need 5 doctors per that clinic versus clinics where I've got more. So
3 doctors per clinic.
There tends to be.
On
so
average.
So absolutely. So yeah, we've got with the expansion plan, there are a number of vacancies going that will be going up, and until we have our applicants and balance working patterns, it could be hard to give an exact figure. But if we base it on that, we've got at least another. Well, we've got 24 clinics now. We want to get to 94, and we want at least a couple of doctors per clinic. There's going to be quite a few opportunities.
So it sounds like to all our attendees out there who are thinking about applying, I wouldn't worry about limited opportunities. I've worked now with Slim Clinic for a good couple of months, and the ambition and the plan to expand is palpable. So I'd say do not worry about that. Get your CV in if you're interested.
Thank you.
You know, the opportunity is there. And in fact, on that note, we've got a question. We've got a question from one of our doctors who, if I can find it, where is it? No, I can't find it at the moment. Let's get to another question. Can you just repeat, how many hours did you say it was for a full-time doctor?
So 37.5. So that is obviously, that's based on an 8-hour clinic day with half an hour lunch break.
Fantastic, thank you. And in terms of also, it'd be helpful to get an idea of how long roughly is the induction period before one sees and has individual responsibility for clients.
Okay. It's not long term. Usually the induction day is 1 full day. The clinic sit-in and observation session is another full day, and usually after that most doctors feel confident moving forward. In terms of going with the clinic, I've had some doctors who want a little bit more support, so maybe have wanted senior doctors to sit in with them and observe the first clinic that they run. So there is no strict rule. Obviously, we'd never want to put a doctor in a clinic who didn't feel confident, they didn't know what they were doing, so the support is there for as much support and training that's required. But usually it's not an exhaustive length of time going through induction. There's not too much death by PowerPoint. It's more about getting in the clinic and experiencing it and observing.
Fantastic, that's really helpful. And can I ask you, in terms of if someone was to applies for the role, what can they expect in terms of that interview process? And what does it consist of? What does it look like?
So at the moment we have a dedicated team working on our doctor recruitment. So there is someone who will reach out to doctors and do that initial screening, just make sure we've got the information that we need, find out a little bit about them, where they're interested in, and then after that it feeds through to both Jane and I, who tend to conduct most interviews if we can through Zoom or Skype or some way, so that we don't have to find a time and place we all come together. We do it virtually, and then from there we tend to arrange maybe a sit-in, so go in and see one of our experienced doctors in one of the clinics who can also and that's all part of the interview process. By the time we've done all those parts, we have a feel for new candidates and how they'll fit in with us, and also identify any areas that we could support any new candidates that want to join us.
Fantastic. Got a few more questions as well. They're still coming through. So a question from Wahid, which is that he says, no, working as the only medic in a clinic at any given time, I appreciate there may be more than one at various points, one medic at that point, how do you kind of get/provide support to your doctors? For example, if you want to be able to run past something past a colleague or clarify something, get a second opinion or decision from another medic. Well, he says that for him, in his GP clinic, he'd just walk into the next door room, speak to a colleague. So how do you kind of compensate for that when you've got medics working alone sometimes?
Okay, so in a variety of ways. I mean, generally, it's not a common occurrence. Generally, what we do is quite specialised in one way, so doctors usually are able to make a decision in clinic. However, obviously there's always the different or the interesting or the rare that needs discussing. So options include, depending on how urgently it needs answering, they can either call through to their regional lead doctor or myself by phone, or we have email communication. As a general rule, if a doctor is ever unsure of anything in the clinic and they're unable to get hold of a member of the senior team, or even through our call centre, there's usually someone who can get hold of one of us to answer them. If there's not, then obviously the doctor needs to make their own clinical judgment as to what to do in that scenario. And if it does mean they want to bring back the patient next week or call the patient subsequently afterwards to give them the answer, then we can play it that way.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's really helpful. And got more questions. So regarding pensions, do you contribute to an employee's own private pension or do you offer a company pension?
It's a contributory pension scheme.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much. And Louise is asking a bit more. I know you touched on, you said there is a revalidation process, but could you provide a bit more information about the revalidation/appraisal support?
Okay, so the STEMI Clinic is a designated body, so we have designated body status. At present, because it is relatively new to us, we outsource our appraisal and revalidation to a third-party proxy provider called MEDSU, Medical Support Union. So doctors who join us connect to us via their GMC Connect designated body, are then supported by MEDSU to arrange their appraisal, and obviously then arrange their revalidation assessment wherever they're due in their 5-year cycle.
And they're given time for their CPD within the contract as well, so they'll be more than prepared for their appraisal.
Yes, so as Jane says, a full-time doctor gets 4 hours of protected CPD time each week. So they should have plenty of time to keep their portfolio up to date, and
lots of opportunities for audits, etc. So there'll be plenty to keep them busy. Fantastic.
So we've got a question about peer support. I think particularly relevant given what you said that, some doctors are working solo. The question is, could you talk a little about peer support? Are there opportunities to meet with other doctors working for the Slimming Clinic?
Most definitely. One of the main objectives that Jane and I medically are bringing in is the ability to have both local, regional and national meetings. So on a local basis, and this tends to happen in a lot of our clinics anyway, doctors who work locally either in the same clinic or nearby clinics tend to meet anyway, have their own case-based discussions, or maybe even do an audit together, but we will put some more structure into that process. So we expect that regionally doctors will meet maybe 3 monthly or quarterly for meetings, and then hopefully at least each year we can get all doctors together nationally. We do have an online doctors forum area where doctors can speak to each other. So again, that's another form of peer support throughout the entire company if doctors wish to use that. But yeah, we'll definitely be encouraging those meetings as we build our teams going forward.
Fantastic. Sounds like growing infrastructure as you're expanding. Yeah, great, fantastic. So I've got another question. Do you offer training in nutrition and exercise prescription?
Do you want to answer this one? 'Cause I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking.
No. Specifically, it's obviously covered on quite a broad scale because nutrition itself is quite broad, and there's various different sort of routes to go down on nutritional advice, and we have to tailor everything to the individual patient and what's going to be feasible for them. So specifically, it's not covered in a huge amount of depth. But
the level of a sort of qualification,
a dietitian or anything to that degree, but it will be something that is covered in their training on how to support the patient that way.
We because we've said about developing our MDT service up here in Glasgow, we've got our first dietitian and our first movement coach working in the clinic, so offering that MDT, and part of the way they're helping to support us is to create some learnings and resources that we will provide to our doctors via a learning platform, so they will be applicable to our clinics for our clinicians based on the experiences that we gain from creating that MDT team, so that there is learning opportunities. In terms of actual qualifications, we're more than happy to support, and there is an allotment for a study leave and study budget in an employed doctor's contract, so we can always look to support doctors who want to do qualifications or additional learning outside of what we offer.
So we've got another question about how long do you give patients sort of diet/lifestyle changes before considering pharmacological treatment? I mean, I appreciate it's very, very dependent on the patient, but what's the general approach to that?
So generally patients have come to us having already tried diet and lifestyle changes. So as a general rule, we consider all patients for pharmacological treatment by the time they start with us. I cannot think of an example of a time I've seen a patient who hasn't failed with attempting weight loss before, who hasn't been through things like popular slimming clubs, who hasn't tried to do a cleanse, a juice plus, tried to go to the gym, paid a personal trainer. So usually by the time that they've presented to us, there's enough evidence that diet and lifestyle modifications alone have been insufficient. So we tend to move into supporting them pharmacologically from near to as soon as they start accessing our clinics.
Okay, thank you. And coming on to just, because clearly it's a private clinic, so it's helped to get a sense of so Alison's asking, what is the cost to the patient to attend the slimming clinic? I appreciate that it will surely vary depending on the treatment, but how does that generally kind of work? So
it's a great question, and actually one that's very prudent at the moment, because we are readjusting the way in which patients pay. Generally, we have the most basic of packages. So the treatments start from £100 per month, essentially, as patients go through to the MDT service, where they'll be seeing 3 experts, so doctor, dietitian, movement coach, and having full support of this counselling app. The cost per month does go up, but to a ceiling of £300 per month. So we are roughly somewhere in between there, depending on obviously length of how long we're going to treat the patient for and what medication they use. But that's a rough ballpark on the cost to patient.
Fantastic. And just on that point, there was a kind of question I had at the back of my mind, because kind of the work that I do at Medic Footprints, the work that we do here, sometimes there are kind of sometimes misconceptions or misunderstandings or different points of view on the private sector and what it's like to work in the private sector. And I'm it's, I think, very natural that those questions will come up and challenges, because like anything, there's the good, there's the not so good. So I guess for me, I'm thinking about, in making the transition to working in the private sector, I don't know if you had any prior understandings about before moving in when you were working in the NHS, but how have you found that transition to working in a private sector setting while staying true to your values?
A good question. I mean, it was quite, personally, I found it quite daunting when I was quite afraid to move away from the NHS. It's what I knew.
Yeah. I left what you're conditioned when you're training, that this is the route that you're going to go down, but it's sort of far from it. There are so many different routes, and I think especially modern day medicine is changing, it's expanding, people are doing so many different, as you say, you're building a portfolio rather than just going down a training scheme.
Yeah, I mean, there are challenges. When I moved out of NHS practice, I, for example, didn't know how to do my revalidation and appraisal. I didn't have a designated body. I had to initially thought I was going to have to submit directly to the GMC, which is a hugely difficult process. So that there are lots of concerns and worries. What we have done is used our learnings and our experience of that to create the support and the infrastructure around the doctors that join us, so that we've created an employee package that is not too dissimilar from the support you get within an NHS setting. So obviously, in terms of whether your question sort of pertains to the fact that there is a cost associated with your services, because obviously in the NHS we don't discuss cost with the patients in terms of what we offer. It is different, and you do have to be comfortable with that to move into the private sector. We, as doctors, as long as we're clear and transparent with our patients about the cost of our services, and they understand the reason why we recommend all the elements that we do, and our services are based on things that we believe will have clinical and medical benefit for the patient, you can feel quite comfortable with assigning a fee to that. We're very much aware that obesity and overweight is a disease that seems to be affecting the slightly lower socioeconomic classes now than where it used to be. So we are aware that the services that we are developing will be as accessible as private medicine can be to as many patients as possible, because that's what we want. We want to treat as many patients and help as many patients as we can.
Thank you very much. Another good question. Are you recruiting? Are you currently recruiting in London at the moment?
So we have clinics on the outskirts of London, sort of both in West and East London. So yes, there are a few vacancies across those. So again, if you're London based, do get in contact, because there may be and should be some opportunities there. With our current clinics that we have, obviously we have doctors in our current clinics, but we have expansion plans in and around those clinics as well. So please do get in contact, and we can let you know of vacancies that are close to you.
Fantastic. Got a question from Selena. She says, in terms of liability for prescribed medications, who is responsible? Is it the individual prescribed? Is it the doctor or the slimming clinic?
It's just like any prescription, even if you were within the NHS, at the end of the day, you have made that clinical decision, and it is your prescription that you're doing, it's your signature, so you've made that judgment and you've prescribed that medication. So at the end of the day, that's part of being a doctor, is that you are taking responsibility for that decision that you've made and that prescription that you made. So it is down to the clinician, and that is something that we obviously cover a lot in our training and our induction, that just like anything, you are making individual clinical decisions. Just because it's in a clinic, in a private setting, at a desk rather than on a hospital ward, it's the same sort of decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's our responsibility as leaders and the slimming clinic to make sure you have, and our doctors have, all the policies and procedures in place to follow, so that they feel comfortable making their clinical judgments, and feel confident in that. And obviously we are always there to support our doctors with any decisions they make. They are the one there presented with the patient, they're the one that makes that clinical decision and justification.
Fantastic. And we've got a question now all about kind of starting one's own doctor-led weight loss clinic. And I appreciate, the Slim Clinic in various guises has been around for a long time. But given all your work that you're doing to kind of build the infrastructure, develop new clinics, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of starting one's own clinic or business, or indeed a new clinic as part of your work?
My goodness, I think there are a lot of elements. I think
private healthcare itself is, as you know, we've got to be CQC regulated, and you've got to provide a safe service. That's the paramount thing, I think, is a big thing. So having all your policies in place and making it a safe environment, not just for the patients, but also any clinicians that are working within your team, in your
absolutely
company.
And keeping up to date with whatever area of private medicine you go in, and as leaders of a clinic as well, you need to be as up to date and informed as you can be, because your doctors and therefore your patients rely on you to lead and to make sure that the service that you're providing is correct and evidence-based and safe.
Fantastic, thank you. Now I'm just looking at the clock, it's 8:10. We still have quite a few questions that have come in. So I'm wondering, Charlotte Jane, are you okay to keep going for a little bit longer?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I just think, it's great, we've got such interest, so I'd say it's really important we can get through as many questions as we can. If we have more questions coming in about 10-15 minutes, then we'll make a decision about whether to carry on. But is that okay with you if we keep going a bit longer?
Yeah, that's fine.
Keep going, it's fine.
Brilliant. All right, so the next question is, do pediatricians fit into this career? Is that kind of a viable option for them, do you think?
So at the moment, obviously we welcome doctors from all walks and all specialities of medicine. We have no current plans to move into the treatment or childhood obesity management. So if the paediatrician is looking for that area of interest, then that isn't there as we stand. However, if a paediatrician wants to work within adult weight management, then we'd be more than open to an application.
Fantastic, thank you. And so we've got a question about the ability to work with the Slimming Clinic alongside an NHS role. So, for example, Vidi asked the question, are you aware of any restrictions for an NHS full-time doctor to maybe work a day a week at the Slimming Clinic? Do you do that? Is that possible?
We have many doctors that do that.
That's how I started, as a sort of locum role. In that way, and then sort of made that transition. So it's quite commonplace.
We have NHS consultants who work Monday to Friday in the NHS and just do Saturday clinics for us. So absolutely not. There would be no issue to explore both.
So that's a very sort of well-trodden path.
Yes, most definitely.
Fantastic, great. Well, Mariam asking the question, is it possible to work in a locum role for less than the minimum of 3 days a week mentioned on the website?
So yes, initially the advert on the website was going out for, we looked for 3 days or more in terms of an employed contract, because we had just sessional doctors working in a self-employed basis for those lesser hours. However, given the level of investment that we would like to make in our doctors, given the level of support and the training, we now feel that it is better for all doctors coming on board to take an employed contract with us. So the focus of how we want to move forward is really to have as many employed doctors in our business as possible. There are restrictions, and I'm sure many of you know, working with, if you are self-employed and work for a company, it is different than being an employee. So it does restrict what we as as who you work for can offer you. So as we want to build a real a team where you're valued and part of it, we would prefer even sessional doctors, i.e. just 1 day a week, to be on employed contracts moving forward.
Okay. Alison is asking, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So Alison is asking, what proportion of your patients reach a, quote, healthy weight, or do some give up before they reach that healthy weight?
Oh, that's the nature of weight loss. We all know patients can do very well, and then they can disappear. They go on holiday. They give up.
They have children.
They have children.
Yeah, so it's a life journey, and I think that's what we're just finding with obesity care in general is it's not a standalone, you're cured from it. It's something that you almost have to manage all throughout your life. So you might see patients come back. The ideal case would be, yes, they maintain their weight for the rest of their life, but that's not the reality all the time.
Go for it.
So we tend to tell our patients that do achieve their healthy weight that it's important that they come back to us as soon as they start to feel things going the wrong way, because if they feel afraid to, they can end up rebounding or going back to a place far worse than where they started. So we try and keep channels of communication open with our patients, so that as soon as half a stone to a stone trickles back on, as it can do, and as we all know, it can be an issue after weight loss, especially weight loss of a large amount, that our patients feel confident and comfortable to come back, so we can help set them back on their straight and narrow. But generally, our goal is to get patients to a weight within a healthy BMI.
Great, thank you very much. And is there, just coming back to salary, is there a pay scale or annual increment at all? Or?
So the employee contract is relatively new to the Slimming Clinic. It's something that we've only just started to offer out. So as it stands, it is the pay. To say where we go in the future after we've actually got doctors in place on employee contracts, I can't say right now, but this is sort of where we're starting from, yes.
Fantastic, thank you. And Sandra's asking, what is the start time for, if we're fortunate to be employed by the Slimming Clinic, what's the start time for working? Can you be flexible with start and end times? What's your approach to that culturally?
So generally, we do have different start times on different days.
It's dependent on the clinic as a localized clinic, and obviously if it's a doctor that's doing regular sessions, say 3 days a week, that's probably something that can be sort of flexible to a degree, if that doctor's going to kind of commit to a few days a week.
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to find that for sort of I say 10 till 3 tends to be our really busiest time, and that is because a large proportion of our patients are mums who drop their children off, pick their children up, so they tend to come in that middle gap. However, we do have professionals who want to see us on the early starts or the late evenings. So the start times,
everyone, I suppose, throughout a weekly basis.
So it depends on what day of the week, but obviously we try and be as flexible and accommodating to a new doctor coming on board to try and pick them the days of the week that work well within that clinic. However, we do require a bit of flexibility in terms of
you can't please everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. We try our best to be as accommodating as possible, but obviously doctors need to that work with us need to retain a little bit of flexibility with adjustments in times if needed.
Fantastic. Thank you. And so, got a question. Is the GP asked to continue the prescription of medications once the patient has started at the clinic?
No,
it's all managed in-house. So you do your follow-up and you do your repeat prescriptions. The GP is very separate, and we do make that quite clear to the patients, which is why it's quite important that we stress the effectiveness of keeping a channel of communication open with the GP to keep them informed, but obviously we can't make it a prerequisite or mandatory to treatment.
Okay, thank you. Ollie was asking, are there any patients with excessive BMI who you may feel need bariatric surgical input?
Yes, I mean, we do see patients. We either see patients who sadly haven't quite qualified for bariatric services, or their services in their area are too stretched, so their BMIs are high, but they cannot access bariatric services. Some come to us to lose weight
pre-bariatric surgery, so they've been told to lose weight to sort of prove that they can do some form of lifestyle changes, and unfortunately we sometimes see post-bariatric where it hasn't necessarily been hugely successful and they need sort of more supports that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sadly a lot of bariatric services don't offer, and I know it does differ everywhere, but offer that much support post-surgery. They get some follow-up, but it seems quite inconsistent with how long patients are supported on the other side. And as we know, those diet and lifestyle behavioural changes are key.
Yeah, the psychological element of it isn't necessarily always covered.
No, but yeah, patients of all all BMIs are welcome to come and see us. Obviously, for our pharmacological treatments, it's a BMI of 27 and above.
There's no upper limit.
But there's no upper limit, and certainly not an upper limit. No, we like to help as many as we can.
Thank you. So Varupa is asking, is FY2 the minimum level of training required to apply, or do you need additional years of medical practice in clinical settings?
So we've recently thought about this, and I think what we have found is that there's a lot of interest and a lot of motivation and excitement with slightly younger doctors with regards to working within obesity management, nutrition and weight loss. So we will consider applicants from so completion of F2 as a minimum.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're getting there. We're doing well. We've got about 5 more questions to go. I'm going to get through all of them. So interesting. Yeah, we've got an interesting question, which poses the nature of the business. I think, raises a really interesting question, and I'm confident what the answer would be. But the question would be: would you employ a doctor who is overweight?
Yes, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a very good question.
I think everyone brings some of their personal experiences, and we've had doctors that have had considerable weight changes or weight loss, and and that's quite a value to their practice, I suppose, because they can relate to their patients. Obviously, we do want our doctors to be advocates of a healthy lifestyle, practice what you preach, and we try and do that in any sort of medical setting, I suppose. I don't think we would discriminate.
We do not discriminate on your weight. It's not part of the application process in any regard. But as Jane said, obviously having that shared experience with a patient can be valuable.
Yeah.
It absolutely is not something we would say no. Obviously, it would pose an interesting question if a patient, said to the doctor, "Well, you're telling me this. Do you what's your take on it?" But then that's for the doctor to manage in that regard. So
I think there's lots of interesting angles there. Of course, you're going on someone who's qualified to do the job. That's the bottom line.
Right.
But also, if we talk about kind of empathy and lived experience and having a personal experience of their own version of that challenge can be of interesting ground, I think, for empathy, which common understanding. So you're right, it throws an interesting angle onto that relationship, I think.
Absolutely.
So
and the relationship is really, like you say, Owen, that's so central to how the patient's success, because the science of what we do is quite easy to teach as doctors. It's not difficult to pick up, but if you fail to or you don't have the ability to really create that relationship, empathize and support and coach your patients, that is so integral to what we do. So that for us is one of the main things that we're looking for when we're encountering new doctors.
Fantastic, thank you. Last few questions now. Do doctors pay? Do you pay into a limited company?
So no, again, now that we are moving forward with employed contracts only, and we are moving away from paying doctors on an hourly rated sessional basis, no, we would go on the payroll PAYE.
Great, thank you. And another question: do you take on doctors for unpaid clinical attachment refreshers under supervision?
So say that again for me. I sort of half heard that and then didn't quite.
Do you take on doctors for unpaid clinical attachment refreshers under supervision? So, for example, to facilitate resumption of foundation training? Do
you know what? This is the first time I've been asked about that. It's not something that I've done before. I would encourage whoever it is that's asked the question to get in touch with us.
Basis.
Absolutely, we can look into that and supporting something like that. No, more than open to it. Just something new.
Fantastic, thank you. And a question about, you talked a little while ago about, I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said, like, we've recently hired a nutritionist and a movement specialist. And so that prompted a reaction from someone saying, I would worry that if there was a nutritionist and a movement specialist, then doing this job would mean I would only be prescribing medication as the medic. Is that the case, or actually is a bit more to it than that?
Sorry to jump in. So No, that's not the case. So it's important to stress that we are employing dietitians, not nutritionists. Now, that's not because we don't see the value of nutritionists, but we know that dietitians have that extra level of medical training to be able to manage patients with medical conditions. So if there are any diabetic patients or other medical conditions, they can balance their diet accordingly. So the way patients work with us, it varies. So as I touched on before, there are different packages, some of which are available to the patients on different levels. So the doctor still remains very integral to giving the diet and lifestyle support, as well as maybe some of the other MDT services. So absolutely not, we are not putting doctors in a room just to dish out medication. They are still the mainstay
treatment
as a whole. But we draw together as a team to create a treatment plan that we all adhere to, and it's likely the patients will be seeing the doctor each week, no matter what program they're on, and so they will gain all their sort of support and encouragement from the doctor.
Fantastic, thank you. And down to our last two questions, unless anyone puts in another question, but at the moment we're down to our penultimate question, which is, who takes ownership of the blood test requests? This person is just thinking through, if someone saw a patient and only went once a week, how does that get managed all the way through?
Okay, so interesting question. At the moment, we don't have any blood testing in our clinics. As it stands, we are looking into routes of doing it with a patient self-testing kit through a finger prick analysis that the patient does themselves, and the results will come to a shared mailbox between all doctors in a clinic. So whoever's on site that day would review and act on any blood results they saw, and again with the doctor on the subsequent day. So there would be.
And obviously, if there's any abnormalities that needed sort of urgent sort of GP referral, obviously we'd get the patient's consent and inform the GP accordingly if there's anything abnormal.
Yeah.
Great. And finally, do you focus solely on obesity, or would you treat other associated comorbidities, for example, HTN, cholesterol, etc.?
No. So our doctors and in our clinics, we focus solely on the prescription and management of obesity. So we don't adjust or alter any prescription medications or advise on any prescription medications for other comorbidities, so things like hypertension. However, if we do note raised blood pressure, then we communicate that with the GP, encourage patients to actively go and seek prescription or management assessment by their GP. But no, the scope of the doctor's role at the Slimming Clinic is solely for the management of weight.
Fantastic. And on that bombshell, we've reached the end of our questions. And you know what? I think this is a bit of a record. You have now officially answered, guys, 50 questions.
Well done. Well done. Good luck.
Well, stiff drink afterwards. Well done. Fantastic. So I hope for everyone out there, it's been really, really useful. We're about to bring things to a close in just a couple of minutes. So before we kind of move on to the final poll and just bringing things to a close, Charlotte and Jane, is there anything else you'd just like to add in closing to what you've said about this opportunity, or anything to do with your experience, anything at all?
So if you're interested, there's absolutely no harm in contacting us and finding out some more about what we do. It is a jump, especially if you're in solely in NHS practice, to think about considering moving out. And we can provide any support or additional questions and are answered as needed. It's truly rewarding to work in this environment where you've got the time and space to really make a difference to patients in their lives. So if you I mean, we all work with patients, but if you really feel that resonates with you, and having that time to really
commit to your patients' care and their overall health at the end of the day, it's definitely worth considering
and getting in touch.
Yeah,
and it's a really exciting time and I think to join us. So
any
really
more questions that people didn't get a chance to ask, I think there's going to be a link to contacting myself or directly to the Slimming Clinic as well.
Absolutely. So if I just take back I'm going to put a few more slides up from here. Here we go. We're just going to move past. We've gone through all that. So I guess this brings us to our second poll. And the second poll is really, in light of the information, everything we've talked about, all the answers to the questions, we're really keen to find out, what are your initial thoughts? And I appreciate for some people, maybe clear, for others, you want to go away and reflect about it. But it's also really helpful for us to get a sense of where people are at. So I'm just going to put the second poll up. And the question is simply, what are your next steps? So you might say, I'm definitely going to apply for a clinical role with the Slimming Clinic. You might just say, I'd like to find out more about doctor-led weight loss services in general. You might say, I really want to speak with a medic from the Slimming Clinic. Or you might say, I'm not sure if this is for me, which of course may be the right thing for you. So let's put this in the poll. I appreciate it's nearly 8:30. I imagine we're probably quite hungry. So please do click that button, and let's be really interested to find out what people's opinions are. So we're going to give you like 10 seconds. So
Just the countdown.
yeah, do not worry, it's all good. So quickly, while we're doing it, Jane, Charlotte, what's the plan of attack for tomorrow with a new clinic? What are you going to be doing at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Well, I'm actually in clinic. I'm going to be the actual resident doctor of the new service, so it'll be hopefully seeing plenty of patients and giving them the opportunity to join us.
Yeah,
so
find out a little bit more.
Frontline.
Yeah, we're on the front line, and I'll be there joining Jane, because it's nice to support all our. They're a new team all round, so we're there just to support and make sure patients get their answers, but also our team is there. We've got a couple of interesting doctors actually coming to see us in the Glasgow clinic tomorrow, so we'll have a chance to chat with them as well, and show them around our new site.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, on that note, we've just finished the poll now. So we've got about 69%. I think it's probably quite good given it's near Harper State. So let's bring it to a close. And this is what we've got. So 13% have said, I'm not sure if this is for me. Okay, 13%. We've got 27% saying, I'd like to speak with a medic from the Slimming Clinic to find out more. And we've got 30% saying, I'd like to find out more about weight loss, doctor-led weight loss service in general, and 30% saying I'm definitely going to apply for a role with the clinic, with the Slimming Clinic. So that's good. That is encouraging. Great. Thank you very much. Just quickly, in terms of upcoming webinars that we at Medic Footprints are hosting, we're really excited about these two events, so please do come along if you think this will be of use to you. The first one is on the 10th of September, 7 p.m. We're going to be joined by Dr. Paul Hercock. You may be familiar, he's done quite a lot of events at Medic Footprints before. He's a medical advisor to Bone Support AB, was formerly at Johnson & Johnson, and he's going to be talking about essential steps for a successful career in pharma. And then on Tuesday, the 8th of October at 7 p.m., we've got a webinar titled Be Smart with Your Finances with Daniel James and David Hill. David is head of private clients at Moggers Druitt, and Daniel is director of client services at Lloyd & White. So two very respected figures. I've had a chance to speak with Daniel a number of times, really think highly of him. And they've got some really interesting thoughts to share with us, especially around NHS pensions. So if that applies to you, please do be there on those dates. And it simply leaves us to say, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, if you'd like more information, as Jane and Charlotte have said, then please do get in touch with Jane. She's going to be the point of contact. She's got her email address there. She's standing by, ready and waiting to take your call, your questions. So please just send her any questions you might have. They're really happy to carry on the conversation. And right at the bottom there, you can see the link which will take you through to the Slimming Clinic's website and the landing page for doctor vacancies. So they are open, they are ambitious, they're expanding, and they're really keen to hear from you. So if you think this could be right for you, then at the very least, please do make touch and see where the opportunity might lead. And on that bombshell, thank you so much for being with us. Jane, Charlotte, can't thank you enough for giving up your evening after a very busy day. We really appreciate it. It's great to be working with you both and the Slimming Clinic in partnership. We're excited to see how you get on in the next few weeks and months. So from us at Medic Footprints, it's goodbye, and from you both,
goodbye. Thank you for joining and listening to us.
all the best. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you very, very much. Goodbye.
Bye.